technologies to address legitimate public concerns about safety, security, and privacy without hampering innovation. She has been actively engaged in encouraging and challenging the transportation sector to address issues of societal importance to our country. Secretary of Chao's visionary leadership is preparing our country for the transportation systems of the future. Secretary Chao received her MBA from Harvard Business School and is the recipient of 37 honorary doctorate degrees. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Chao. Just a moment.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Welcome. It is a great honor to have
Thank
you here.
You so much.
You.
I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, but I think you'll understand when I say, I've got a boss too. So I just came from the White House. We just had the signing of the USMCA agreement, a great accomplishment that's going to do so much for America's economy, America's ranchers, workers, farmers, and in my particular case, what I'm concerned about is 76,000 new American jobs for American auto workers. So that's a great beginning. I want to acknowledge, thank you, Tabor, for that nice introduction, which I didn't get to hear. I presume it's nice. And also, I want to acknowledge Eric Stallmer. So Eric, thank you so much for being here. And then Wayne over there in Monteith, who's doing a great job. And I understand that we also have Congressman Garrett Graves. Has he gone? Or if he is gone, you got to tell him I gave him a big shout out. I think he deserves a round of applause. He actually does a great deal for this industry. You're all here because you care about space. You care about the future of our country. You care about space exploration, and frankly, the future of what our world will look like. The global space economy has changed so much. I was actually the Deputy Secretary of Transportation more than 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And at that time, commercial space transportation was just a glint in our eyes as to what potential it held. Well, today, the global space economy is approaching $400 billion. And by some estimates, the U.S. accounts for around 80% of the space activity, which could be worth $1 trillion by 2040. The commercial space sector is remarkably resourceful and innovative. From potential applications of quantum computing to 3D printed rockets, who would have thought? I mean, this sector is changing in so many dramatic ways. It's estimated that the cost to put satellites in geosynchronous orbit has fallen about 20%, as you all know, over the last 5 years. This is due to American ingenuity, because we have people in America who are able to use reusable satellites and also rockets. Some foresee a day when suborbital commercial flights will take minutes instead of hours. It will truly be like Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, and even be better. So all these ambitious innovations require reliable space transportation. And since the start of 2017, the U.S. has had 95 licensed commercial space launches and re-entries. We had 31 launches and re-entries in 2019, and that number could increase to more than 50 in 2020. To continue building on America's leadership in this sector will require a regulatory environment that is forward-looking, forward-thinking, responsive, versatile, and, of course, to us, one that prioritizes safety. Our efforts at the U.S. Department of Transportation are guided by 3 priorities. The first is safety. Safety's always got to be number 1. Our second priority is rebuilding and refurbishing our country's critical infrastructure, which will now include spaceports as well. And number 3, we need to be preparing for the transportation system of the future. And we need to do so by engaging with the emerging new technologies to address legitimate public concerns about safety, security, and privacy without hampering innovation. Any successful initiative requires the right people in the right jobs. For those of you that are in management, that's a number 1 decision that you have to make. And in my case, at the department's case, we're delighted to have Steve Dixon as the administrator and Dan Elwell as the deputy administrator at the FAA. And we also have General Wayne Monteith as the associate administrator for commercial space transportation. One might say that he has a little bit of experience in this sector. We're delighted to have him. Kevin Coleman as his deputy associate administrator, and acting director of spaceports, James Hatt, who are leading our commercial space efforts. Now, to meet the increasing cadence and the complexity of commercial space, the department is developing new streamlined launch and re-entry license requirements. The proposed rule will provide a safe, performance-based regulatory approach to commercial space transportation and a framework that is conducive to innovation, because innovation is part of who we are as Americans. And this new rule will improve safety requirements and also enhance and enable greater collaboration among stakeholders. The rule will also improve efficiency by encouraging launch sites and re-entry operators to suggest and implement design and operation solutions. And as I've mentioned, the department has also created our country's first Office of Spaceports. The office will approach spaceports from an enterprise perspective. It will seek to remove barriers to competitiveness, empower local and state partners, and help meet the needs of the rising frequency of launches. And the FAA has also been at work to integrate space operations into our national airspace system. This is very important, obviously. Through integration and automation, there will be increased efficiency and improved management of airspace traffic as launches increase. And then, in addition to the FAA's Office of Commercial Space Transportation's efforts, as I've just mentioned, they've also, through the General's visionary leadership, has taken on the very difficult task of undergoing an extensive reorganization. Reorganizations are hard. They require different roles for different people, and we're very cognizant of that. And we want to be sensitive and to do the right thing. But on the other end, so having said, but what requires these changes is that our world is changing too much. We have a competitive race going on, and we need to be able to have the right people doing the right things so that our country can benefit. And so I want to really thank the General again for taking on this and so many other major tasks. And General, Thank you for joining us, and thank you for what you do and what your team does as well. So what this all does is to provide opportunity to retool and improve internal processes to better meet the needs of stakeholders while still protecting the public. And what's going to happen is that we're going to have better accountability by placing responsibility for all licensing and oversight activities under one executive. And supporting the commercial space sector is a priority at the highest level of this administration. The President believes in this. In fact, so much so that he formed the National Space Council very early on. And we had our first meeting on June 30th, 2017, with the Vice President, Mike Pence, as its chairman. The President is fascinated with space. And if you doubt that, he has established the Space Force, the new frontier. This is an idea which has been discussed for decades, but is now finally a reality. There are reasons for the Space Force, and you and I both know what they are. And when I say that the President is fascinated by space, I don't mean to say that it's frivolous. He has a vision for the future. He has a vision for space, for the Space Force, and also for commercial space. And all of that is to help us reclaim our rightful place as the #1 preeminent force in this field. Because we are a force for good, and we take care of other people. We do more than our share of so many things, so our role is really important. But what I've said today are just some of the many initiatives that this administration has launched to maintain our country's leadership in space. And as you may know, I'm sure you know, not long ago, America was losing its global preeminence in space. The Space Shuttle program launched its last shuttle in 2011. And by 2012, we were #4 in launches. But since 2017, America has reclaimed the #1 position in the world for commercial launches. I am the first United States Secretary of Transportation to pin a set of commercial astronaut wings on a flight crew. Last February 7th, 2019, I presented commercial astronaut wings to the crew of Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity. Lead pilot Mark Stuckey and co-pilot Frederick Sturkow has successfully flown the Unity to the edge of space. On February 22nd, 2019, 3 more individuals qualified for this honor when Virgin Galactic made another qualifying launch. Only 7 pilots have ever received commercial astronaut wings from the FAA. The Department of Transportation has played an essential role in the U.S. space sector for over 3 decades. In that time, we have developed and maintained vital partnerships, both intergovernmental and with the private sector. And we have accumulated so much in-house expertise. And this is the foundation for a successful regulatory environment. The commercial space industry is filled with dreams and possibilities, and yet it's also grounded in the services that it can make possible and that it enables. It is increasingly important to our economy, and it is contributing to a better quality of life for our citizens. And that is why our department, the Department of Transportation, is doing everything we can to prepare for the commercial space transportation demands of the future. See you in space. Thank you.